Hello everyone, my name is Chung. Today, I want to share with you a very simple, real-life story, one that holds a lesson powerful enough to change the way you see life. It all began on a quiet, windless afternoon in the countryside, where bamboo groves whispered in the breeze and a small river gently curved around the village. There lived an old man, gentle, thin-framed, but with eyes that were always warm and deep, as if he had already seen everything the world had to offer. One day, his grandson, a young man, returned home after years of struggling in the bustling city. His face looked tired, and his eyes were filled with contemplation. Sitting down on an old bamboo chair beneath the shade of a mango tree, he looked at his grandfather and softly asked, "Grandpa, how can I live peacefully in a world that's always changing and full of loss?" His grandfather just smiled without answering. Instead, he stood up, leaned on his cane, and said, "Come with me to the riverbank. I want to show you something." That was the beginning of what seemed like a simple conversation, but it turned out to be the key to unlocking a profound truth. The two of them walked quietly along the dirt path leading to the riverbank. The late afternoon was still and windless, with only the soft hum of insects in the grass and the golden light of the setting sun dancing on the water. The grandfather walked slowly, but each step seemed purposeful. The grandson followed behind, curious but still unsure of what his grandfather was trying to show him. When they reached the river, the old man sat down on a familiar rock. It was the same spot where, years ago when the boy was small, they used to sit and fish together, talking about everything and nothing. The grandfather looked out at the flowing water and gently asked, "Do you remember how much you loved keeping goldfish when you were little?" The young man smiled and nodded. "Of course, Grandpa. I even gave each one a name. I remember one time, when one of them died, I was sad for a whole week." The old man asked again, "And if your neighbor's goldfish had died back then, would you have felt the same sadness?" The grandson thought for a moment, then shook his head. "No, probably not. It wasn't mine, so I wouldn't have been sad." The grandfather nodded slowly, as if he'd just heard something important. "Now let me ask you this, if a total stranger kept pet fish, and one of their fish died, would you feel anything at all?" The young man shook his head again. "Definitely not, Grandpa. I wouldn't feel anything. It has nothing to do with me." The old man smiled softly. "Do you see now? The sadness you felt back then, it didn't come from the death of the fish. It came from the thought that the fish was yours. The pain wasn't in the fish, it was in the words mine and yours." The young man fell silent. Something inside him stirred. "My dear," his grandfather continued, "every time we suffer or feel loss, it's not because the event itself is too painful to bear, it's because we've tied it so tightly to our sense of self. We say, 'That's my lover, my job, my dream,' and so when it's gone, we feel like a piece of us has been torn away." A gentle breeze passed through the old man's silver hair, carrying with it the earthy scent of the riverbank. He looked at the water and spoke slowly. "Sometimes, all it takes is one step back. If we can just observe things as they are, without clinging to them as ours, the pain, too, will begin to step back. The young man sat still, unmoving. Inside him, something began to loosen. A piece of hurt, once so sharp, now felt lighter, softer. And this was only the beginning of the deeper lesson his grandfather was about to share. The old man remained seated, his eyes following the gentle flow of the river before him. He picked up a small twig and dropped it into the water. The twig spun slowly, then drifted away, disappearing behind the reeds along the bank. "You see," he said in his calm, steady voice, "the river never holds on to anything. A dry leaf falls, it floats away. A branch drops in, it floats away too. Whether it's clean water or murky water, the river accepts it all, and then lets it go." He turned to look at his grandson. "You're in pain because you're trying to hold on. Holding on to feelings, to people, to the past. But life is like this river. Everything comes, and everything goes. If you learn to let go, you'll be as light as the flowing water. But if you cling, you'll end up stuck like the branches caught on the shore." The young man stayed silent, as if seeing the river for the first time with different eyes. It was no longer just the place where he fished as a child, but now a mirror reflecting the truth of life. Everything flows, and it's the clinging that causes us pain. The grandfather spoke softly. "It's not about not loving. It's about not clinging. Because the moment you cling, you're no longer free." The grandson sat still for a long while by the river. The late afternoon light had faded into a soft golden hue, and in the gentle breeze, he felt something inside him begin to quiet down. He turned to look at his grandfather, the old man with silver hair and deep, knowing eyes that seemed to understand everything, yet never used grand words to teach. He simply told stories. And somehow, each story lingered in the boy's heart for a very long time. "So, if I'm not supposed to cling to anything," he asked, his voice heavy, "should I stop loving? Stop caring?" He paused, then added, "It feels like, if I don't hold on to anything, life will just feel cold and empty." The grandfather smiled, a soft, kind smile full of understanding. He looked at his grandson and replied, "No, my dear. Letting go doesn't mean stopping love. You can still love someone with all your heart, just don't treat them like they belong to you. You can still be devoted to your work, your dreams, your loved ones, but with the understanding that everything can change. And instead of suffering when something leaves, you feel grateful that it was ever with you at all." The young man fell silent. That sentence echoed within him like a bell, slow, clear, and awakening. His grandfather continued, "You know, the ones who suffer the most are usually those who hold on the tightest to the things they love. But the happiest people are often those who let life come and go naturally. No forcing. No clinging." He bent down, picked up a small stone, and tossed it gently into the river. Ripples spread out, then faded away. Like this stone, no matter how hard or soft you throw it, in the end, it sinks and disappears. Feelings are like that too. If you keep holding on to pain, it'll pull you under. But if you face it, breathe through it, and then let it go, you'll float again, like a water hyacinth drifting along with the current. The grandson bowed his head. He had no more questions. A strange peace began to settle in his heart, not because everything had been fixed, but because he no longer felt the need to control everything. Peace doesn't come from not loving, his grandfather repeated gently. It comes from learning how to let go. And in that moment, beneath the quiet village sky, the grandson knew. He had just learned something far greater than all the years he had spent struggling out there in the world. Evening had fallen. The surface of the river glowed with a soft orange hue, reflecting the drifting clouds above. A gentle breeze blew, carrying with it the scent of wildflowers and damp earth. The grandfather and grandson still sat side by side, saying nothing now, only the quiet, peaceful stillness remained between them. The young man didn't speak, but something inside him felt unknotted. The heavy stones he'd been carrying, expectations, pressure, old wounds, no longer weighed him down like before. He hadn't forgotten them, but he no longer let them take up all the space in his mind. "Thank you, Grandpa," he said softly. "I think I finally understand. It's not about stopping love, it's about loving freely. It's not about giving up, just about living without forcing everything to go my way." His grandfather simply smiled and gently patted him on the shoulder. "That's right. You can't hold on to anything forever, but you can live fully in each moment, without clinging, without regret." The two stood up and slowly walked home, their steps quiet in the soft glow of sunset. And in the grandson's heart, for the first time in a long time, there was a peaceful emptiness, not because something was missing, but because he had finally learned how to let things go gently. Life, at its core, is a flowing stream. Everything comes and goes, like water slipping through our fingers. We don't suffer because we lose things, but because we once held on too tightly. When we learn to love without possessing, to let go without indifference, to live without trying to control everything, only then can our hearts truly be free. If you're carrying sadness, regret, or an attachment that weighs you down, remember the river. It holds on to nothing, yet it keeps flowing, peacefully. Letting go isn't about losing. It's about giving yourself the chance to live more lightly.